Hi, welcome to our walking tour through the Bible. I'm Father Alexander, this is St. Peter's Hove, and we're now at chapter 19 of the book of Exodus. I'm going to talk about chapters 19, chapter 20, and the following chapters. In chapter 20, we have the giving of the Ten Commandments. This is probably the most important passage of the Old Testament, really, when you consider that the Ten Commandments were the Ten Commandments of God that we all had to learn off by heart as little children. Also, that the Ten Commandments are the Ten Commandments of God, not 10 rules that we ourselves have made up, but 10 commandments that God has given to us. They come from God, they're written in stone. They're on 2 stone tablets given to Moses, who hands them on to us. The writing on stone is clearly symbolic because it tells us very clearly that you can't just rub the bits out that you don't like or rewrite the Ten Commandments as you choose. No, they're written in stone for all time. However, let's be clear about another thing, that St. Thomas Aquinas says that the Ten Commandments are dictates of natural reason. In other words, if God had not given us the Ten Commandments, per impossibilem, if we had had to sit down and work out 10 commandments that would somehow or another govern human society for the good of all human beings, these are exactly the 10 commandments that we would come up with. In other words, in the 10 commandments, we have a meeting between the will of God and also what is natural and reasonable for human beings to believe should be the law. So that is very important. We do not believe in divine command theory. That is to say, if I can explain it, we don't say, well, adultery is wrong because God has made it wrong. And if God were to say on Monday morning, well, from now on, adultery is okay, then adultery would be okay. No, that's not the case. We say very clearly, God has declared to us that adultery is wrong, but adultery is wrong of itself. And even if you don't believe in God, you should know by the use of your natural reason that adultery is wrong. Again, don't covet your neighbor's goods. Seems perfectly reasonable to me. If you want to have a miserable life, by all means go ahead and covet your neighbor's goods. You'll have a terrible time. You'll be eaten away by envy and jealousy. You'll go green and you'll die of chagrin. What a terrible way to go. No, God says, do not covet your neighbor's goods. God knows what's good for us. He is our Father. And we also, by participating in reason, we know what's good for us as well, deep down, though several things tend to get in the way of our reasoning faculties and our reasoning processes. Our reasoning processes are not always straightforward. A lot of things distract us when we're trying to reason, and sometimes our reasoning goes all amiss. Now, the thing about the Ten Commandments, I did say before, God is a lawgiver, and he most certainly is a lawgiver. But God is not just a lawgiver. That's really very important. God is not to be confused with somebody who hands down laws without caring about the people who receive the law. God loves us. His law is a sign of his love to us. In fact, his law is a manifestation of his love to us. It's because he loves us, he doesn't want us to kill each other. It's because he loves us, he doesn't want us to commit adultery. It's because he loves us, he wants us to honor our father and our mother. Because he loves us, he wants us not to covet our neighbor's goods. Because he loves us, he wants us to live in peace and harmony with each other. God is love, and his love is shown in these 10 commandments. Now, the law of Great Britain today is not really a manifestation of love to us. When a policeman stops me for driving my car too fast, saying, do you know you're going 36 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone? He doesn't do that because he loves me. He does that because, well, it's his job. And of course, I can't really say, oh, I'm terribly sorry, officer. Thank you for being so loving towards me. No, in fact, policemen, generally speaking, are officious rather than loving. God is not officious. God is loving. Now, we need to grasp at this stage the context in which the 10 Commandments are given to us. And go back to chapter 19. Chapter 20, we have the 10 Commandments. Chapter 19, we have the covenant at Sinai. Now, what is the covenant? Well, we all know what a covenant is. A covenant is like marriage. Marriage is a covenant. In other words, it's 2 parties getting together and in love sharing everything. It's a union between two parties. And the covenant is essentially the marriage pact between God and Israel. It is the union between God and his people that makes his people his people. It's not to be confused with a contract. A covenant is willingly entered into. A contract is something you're constantly looking for loopholes to get out of. A covenant is something you willingly accept. A covenant is a loving union. And the sign of the covenant is the Ten Commandments. In other words, we're united to God. The Israelites are united to God in the covenant of Sinai, which is, of course, marked with a sacrifice. We are united to God thanks to our baptismal covenant, and which is also marked by a sacrifice, the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. And the Ten Commandments are the sign that we have of our marriage bond with the Lord. In other words, when we keep the Ten Commandments, it's the sign that God loves us and we love God. So we shouldn't see the Ten Commandments as an imposition from on high, something that has been forced on us. It's rather something that has been willingly assented to by us and is the sign of our union with God. Again, like a marriage. Men who are married, women who are married, don't suddenly think, oh my goodness, isn't it terrible? I can't commit adultery. Rather, they wouldn't dream of committing adultery because they're so in love with their husband or wife. We too love the Lord, and therefore the Ten Commandments flow from the love we have of the Lord. So God is a lawgiver, God is a legislator. We're people who follow his law, but this is not to be confused with the rather debased way in which legislation happens today. Nowadays, every law has coercion behind it. You have to pay your tax, things like that. We are not doing these things because we're forced to do it. We're doing it out of the power of love. That's totally different. Okay, all the best. More about this later. Bye.